Okay, so lesson 4 of our Excel lessons is all about how to apply number formats. So just like you can change the font color, the font style, etc., in order to make your spreadsheets easier to read, we can also change the format of our numbers. So you can change it from being just a number to being a currency, to being a percentage, to being a certain number of decimals, etc. There are 2 main ways to do this. We're going to go through them both in this slideshow. There isn't a practice worksheet to follow along for this particular set of slides, because I'm just going through some basics, and then you're going to apply that in assessment for lesson 4. The other thing I will say is that you need to be able to do this with your eyes closed, essentially, in the world of Fashion 476, Fashion 576, and in the world of buying. You need to understand what the difference is between a general number versus a currency versus a percentage, particularly. Those are the 3 that you're going to use the most, and you need to be able to make sure throughout this semester and into the future that you remember to do that, and then you remember how it changes calculations that you're doing in Excel. So the 2 major ways that you can change the format of a number. You select the cell or cells that you want to reformat the numbers for, and then you are going to go up into your Home tab, and you can click on this drop-down menu right here that says General. And so this area of the Home tab is called the Number Group, and you can go ahead and click on there and select your desired format, or you can go to one of the quick number format commands that are right below that. So if you know that you want that cell to be currency, you can just click on the $sign. If you know you need it to be percentage, you can click on the percentage sign, etc. You can apply that to one cell at a time, or you can apply it to a lot of cells at a time. Like I said, in this class, you will be using currency and percentages. So in this instance, we had selected 5 cells, and they were all just standard numbers. I want them to display as currency, and I want them to have 2 decimal places, because that's our standard way, right, of communicating currency. So I have gone into currency, I have selected it, and then from there I have told it I want it to go to 2 decimal points. Generally speaking, for currency, we will always go to 2 decimal points, and for percentages, which is the other number format we use a lot, generally I will have you go to 1 decimal point. Anytime you change the format of a number format in the spreadsheet, if you go up into your formula bar up here, you will see the actual value. This becomes important particularly for percentages, because if you had changed this to say 21%, from our basic math review, we know that that's actually 0.21 in real number terms. So if you're challenged to remember that, just remember that your formula bar always shows the actual whole number and or the actual real number, and that's what's being used in other calculations. And that will become really important throughout merchandising math, because we do a lot with percentages, and we have to remember that we're not actually timesing something by 48, for example, if it's 48%, but we're actually multiplying it by 0.48. Okay, so that's how we apply those number formats. Now, we do need to know a couple of ways that we really need to think about using number formats correctly, because Excel automatically applies various different mathematical rules based off of how you have entered your data. So you need to enter your data in a way that Excel can understand and then use the proper number format. So for example, the image that I have below here shows how to use number formats correctly for dates, percentages, and times. And you will need to follow all three of these formats in the world of merchandising. Percentage is the most important though. If you have a value that you need to know is 50%, you need to make sure that you have indicated it as percent. So you want to add the percent sign, and then in merchandising math, we generally also always go to 50.0% or whatever the decimal is, and we always go to 1 decimal point. So if you use your number format and you tell Excel that a number is a date, a percentage, or a time, these are the defaults that it will go to. So let's look at a few of these things in action. So one of the most helpful number formats is the percentage format. It takes values, it displays your values as percentages. So like 20% or 55%. This is obviously really helpful when you're calculating all sorts of things such as sales tax, discounts, employee discounts, etc. So when you type a percent sign after a number, the percent number format will be automatically applied to that cell. So if you don't want to go up into your home key or into your home bar and change the number 15 from a number to a percentage, all you have to do is go into your cell and type 15%, and it's automatically going to apply that. However, remember, we want to go to 1 decimal point on our percentages. So sometimes you might have to type 15.0, or you might have to tell Excel that you want to go to that 1 decimal point. So 15%, you can type it in, you can tell Excel that it's a percentage, and it will apply that to your format. As you should remember, a percentage can also be written as a decimal. So 15% is the same thing as 0.15, 7.5% is 0.075, 20% is 0.20, etc., and so on. So there are many times in merchandising math when this percentage formatting will be useful. We use it in almost every single formula that we have in merchandising math. And so you do have to remember that if you're using percentage format versus non-percentage format, your math calculations are different. So for example, in the images below, we're actually dealing with sales tax rate right now, and there are 5 different formattings, right? We have 5, we have 5%, and we have 0.05. 2 of these are correct, 1 of them is incorrect. If you are applying a tax and you're wanting to figure out in dollars how much sales tax is on a jacket that costs $22.50, if you tell Excel that the sales tax rate is 5, and then in this cell, you are telling Excel to calculate what the dollar amount of tax is, you would say, I want you to take the price and I want you to times it by 5. Immediately, you'll see what the problem is. It's showing that you have sales tax of $112.50. We know that is incorrect. And that is because we did not format our cell correctly. The other 2 ways of formatting it are going to give us the same answer, and both are correct. We could type in 5%, or we could type in 0.05, and then when we tell Excel to multiply 2250 by 5%, or 2250 by 0.05, we get $1.13 for both of them. The biggest thing to remember, though, is if you've converted your percent into a decimal, you cannot add that percent symbol. If you add the percent symbol, it's going to think that you are wanting to calculate 0.05% rather than 5%. This is something that you will, from the get-go, need to master in Excel, and it seems really obvious and easy right now, but when you start converting from a formula to an Excel spreadsheet, sometimes it's not as intuitive anymore. So hopefully you will grasp this so that your math calculations come out correctly. Now, as far as date formats are concerned, whenever you're working with dates, you want to tell the spreadsheet that you are working with a date. So July 15th, 2014, you type that in your cell. You then want to tell Excel that that is a date. Date formats allow you to do a bunch of powerful set of different functions that allow you to sort data, organize data, distribute data. But spreadsheets don't understand information in the same way that a person does. So for example, if I typed October into a cell, the spreadsheet isn't going to know that I'm entering a date, so it's going to treat it just like any other text. Instead, when I enter a date, I need to tell Excel that that is a date. I need to use the date format on my spreadsheet. We'll then convert it into month, day, year, or if you end up working in another country, it might be day, month, year. So I had originally typed in October 12th, 2014 in my spreadsheet. I then told my spreadsheet that was a date, and it converted it into month, day, year, and now I'm good to go. Now that we have our date entered correctly and formatted, we can do a bunch of different things that you will probably end up doing in your merchandising math spreadsheets. For example, we could use that fill handle that we learned about several lessons ago, and we could go ahead and apply and drag that date to a bunch of different cells within a column. If we hadn't done the date formatting correctly, it would not automatically apply those dates. But you see how it's taking this 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, it's giving us an extra, like it's automatically adding consecutive dates down a column. If I hadn't applied that date formatting, Excel wouldn't automatically do that for me. So that's very handy. It speeds up the process of formatting your spreadsheets for you. If we had typed out March 15th, it's not going to recognize it as a date. If we type out, this is one of the weird intricacies of Excel, if we typed out March 15 without the TH, the spreadsheet actually does recognize it as a date, but it won't include the year because it doesn't know what year it is. It doesn't have that information. So typically, I like to type in my full date with my month, date, year, and then tell Excel that it is a date, and it will reformat that for me. That's typically how I will go about dates. So here are a few tips for just getting the best results when you're formatting your numbers. You're going to practice this a lot this semester. Try to apply number formats to an entire column if you can. So if you are planning on an entire column being currency, just go up to the top, select the whole column by clicking on B, and then saying everything in this column is going to be a currency. That's often how spreadsheets are set up. So applying it to an entire column will just speed up, or an entire row, just speed up the process for you. That way, anytime you add new data, it will automatically go into that new format, and you won't have to keep going up to your formatting bar and changing the formatting. You also probably want to get in the habit of double checking your values after you have applied a number format. So this will happen for you quite a bit when we're dealing with percentages. If you apply a number format to existing data, you may actually get some unexpected results. So for example, if you apply the percentage format to a cell that has the value of 5 in it, it will give you 500%, not 5%. So in this case, you would need to delete your delete your 5 and then re-enter it, and it will retype it, and then it will correct it for you. So what I generally say, and you'll want to remember this, is try to format your cells before you start entering any numbers, particularly in the case of percentage. So tell Excel that this is going to be a percentage that I'm typing in, format it, and then when I hit 5, it will automatically go to 5%. Or type 5% and it will do it for you. If you reference a cell with a number formatting in a formula, the spreadsheet may automatically apply the same number to a new cell. So for example, if you use a value with currency formatting in the formula, the calculated value will also use currency. So that the best way to sort of show that is I had a cell here with currency of $184.50. Cell B has a formula where I've taken A1, so I've taken this number and I've divided it by 2. It's going to assume that I want my answer to also be in currency, and it's going to apply that automatically. If you want your data to appear, you want it to not be currency for whatever reason, you're going to have to tell it it's something else. If you want your data to appear exactly as entered, you need to use the text number format. This format is especially good for numbers that you are not planning on performing calculations on. So phone numbers, addresses, zip codes, numbers that begin with 0, those you will want to tell Excel that in the formatting drop-down menu that this is a text, that it's text. That way it won't perform any calculations, it won't apply any assumptions or rules, and it won't perform calculations with those, because you're not going to ever need to calculate a cell that has a phone number in it, for example. So text is the best thing to do in those instances if you know it's a cell that you're not going to have to perform calculations on. The increase decimal and decrease decimal commands are very helpful, very handy. I've already kind of gone over the basic rules that we are going to use in our class. If you increase and decrease decimals, it's not going to change the value of the cell. It's going to keep in the formula bar up here the full number with however many decimals you have. Those are always going to be there. It's always going to be stored in the calculations. It just is going to change how many decimals are being displayed. So generally speaking, currency, we will display 2 decimals. And like I said, for percentages, we'll display 1, even though multiple decimals are being used in the calculations. To increase or decrease your decimals, you're just going to go up here into the number format area of the home bar, and this one will decrease your decimals, this one will increase your decimals. So for example, in this case, we select the cell, 1995 is the value of that cell, $19.95. If I decrease the value to 1 decimal, which is what has happened here, not only is it decreasing it to 1, but it's also rounding it. So you can see that if I want to go to $19.95 and I want to go from that to 1 decimal, the correct way to display that is actually to round that up to 0 and display it as 20. But as long as you remember that my expectation is that you will have 2 decimals for currency and 1 decimal for percentage, and then whole numbers have no decimals, you will be fine for this class. Okay, so that goes over the basics of number formatting. Like I said, dates, numbers, whole numbers, currency, and percentage are the ones that you'll be using the most. So at this point, lesson 4 is over. You can go ahead and go into Canvas and open up the practice workbook. There is just one tab for lesson 4. You will go ahead and complete that following the instructions in Canvas, and then save it and upload it so that we have record that you have completed lesson 4.